Hey everyone, welcome back to Cubicle the CEO. I'm really excited because today's case study in our intellectual property series explores a lane that we haven't really dug into on the show before, which is patents and how specifically our guest, Lisa Myers, was able to leverage patents and IP as a revenue growth tool for her business and a way to establish brand credibility and brand loyalty. So, very excited to dive into that case study today. If you're new to Lisa, a quick introduction. Lisa Myers has grossed close to, I think, 10 million at this point with her startup, Ceres Chill. She's the founder of the first and best breast milk chiller out there. And she did this all while raising two kids under the age of 4 and making partner at an international law firm, all while her husband was deployed in Iraq. And by the way, this is while the world was still recovering from COVID and dealing with tariffs and all the things. So no small feat, but I am so thrilled to be joined by you today, Lisa. Welcome.
Thanks so much, Ellen. This is a great conversation to be having. I mentioned to you before we got started officially that a lot's been happening for the company around IP, and the goal is 10 million. We're not there yet, but by our third year, we were doing 3 million, and then we've been working on steady growth ever since. So yeah, it's been a journey, and IP has certainly been a big part of it.
Amazing. Well, let's get into your Cubicle to CEO story and then we'll jump into the case study. So you've actually kept your, as you call it, your day job as an attorney, but tell us a little bit about the catalyst that launched you into entrepreneurship.
Yeah, so I started out as a farm girl in Eastern Washington State, and then crazy enough, my journey took me to politics in New Jersey. I ended up kind of middle of my life, middle of a successful career in government and politics, going to law school at night at Rutgers Camden, and then I worked for an international law firm in Philadelphia and came out west to open the firm's Vancouver, Canada office and in that mix, I became pregnant with my daughter and then with my son. And there were no women in my department. There was a lot of travel required for the type of law I practiced, and it just wasn't something that was done. And so that was my cubicle experience. My cubicle was constantly being in a plane and off a plane and in a courtroom. And at the time, breastfeeding parents' only option was a cooler that lasted 6 to 8 hours, was a ton of plastic, a chemical freeze pack, overall gross, and screamed tired, overburdened mom.
Yeah.
I already felt like a hot mess. I didn't need anything else contributing to that, especially on that journey up the ladder, trying to get to, the quote CEO position. I was always looking for ways to achieve. I mean, I think that's firstborn daughter behavior, but I ended up inventing the chiller out of my own need. I just didn't see how I could get where I needed to be in life as a mom and as a professional with what was being offered. And so I invented a breast milk chilling thermos that traveled really well, could last for more than 20 hours, and was definitely under the radar. Didn't scream mom, but helped me get through really long days and really long trips and everything I needed to be successful. So, yeah, that was how it started. I don't have my day job as an attorney anymore, but I kept it for a very long time because I wanted to make sure my family was safe and that the idea and the company was safe. And so along the way, I was practicing law and showing up for my clients during the day. And then I had all of these sleepless nights that I could make good use of because our manufacturers were overseas and I had a lot of planning to do. So I applied for my patent while I was a mid-level partner at the firm. And then by the time I left, I'd been promoted to an equity partner. So it was a journey. It was an exhausting one. But yeah, I left when the business became so big. I knew that I couldn't really show up the way I wanted to for my clients. I couldn't show up for my kids, and I was definitely putting my health at risk. So we had to
Yeah.
make some choices.
Very fair. But I think it's really great for our listeners to see examples of, people like you who were able to manage both for a window of time to provide a little bit more stability, especially as you're growing a startup that's very cost heavy, a product based business. But then, like you said, once the business reached a certain level of stability, having the option then to make the choice to go all in on Ceres Chill. And okay, you mentioned, filing for the patent. So let's get right into this case study. I mean, you come from the world of law, so you're obviously more well versed in law and legal processes than probably the average entrepreneur. But did you always know from the get-go that you were going to patent this design? And was it something that you started working toward very early in the business, or was it something that didn't really come to like a pressing need until later in the stage of developing the company?
So I would say initially for anyone that's looking to develop a hard good, a product you can hold in your hands that's really unique, I feel like a provisional patent is a great first step. First of all, Ellen, to be clear, I am not what I would call a super useful lawyer. I practice meaningful law. I was a litigator. I was an assistant district attorney in Philadelphia, but I was not a business lawyer and I was not an IP lawyer. Those would have been helpful, but
Yes.
I wasn't and I'm not. But I was able, and I would encourage any entrepreneur or anyone of your community out there to look into it. I was able to file my own provisional patent, even with just my meager abilities as a courtroom storyteller, is really how I think of myself. Because I would say the US Patent and Trademark Office, the USPTO.gov site, is one of the best government sites out there. It is set up to help, for the most part, from what I've experienced, amateur inventors, people who don't have a lot of experience, at least in those initial stages. So I filed the provisional patent by myself by just looking at what had been done before, by looking at the USPTO website, and I did some really adorable drawings. I got to say, Ellen, I can't draw a straight line to save my life, but I knew from my research that drawings were fundamental to the validity of a patent. So I gave it my best shot. I will make sure that you have all of the links to all of my adorable drawings so that people can see what actually can become a real utility patent and how they can just get started. So I'm getting long-winded because I'm so excited to speak with you. But I would say real quick, there's utility patents and there's design patents. And I don't want to go into too much detail, but a utility patent is really an invention that is something very unique in design, that its function is tied to its components. And you get a lot stronger protection if you're successful in getting utility patent. They're expensive as all get out and super complicated. And normal people, I would say, are not capable of filing a final utility patent application. However, the first step is a provisional patent, and that buys you a year of time to like breathe, research, protect the idea, like mark your place in time as the inventor, and then go out and speak to potential manufacturers, potential business partners, your community of people, put a website out there, start to kind of test the waters of the market without as much risk. So a design patent is considered a lot weaker, and then it's really just the appearance of your product, and that can easily be changed. Small things can be manipulated and your protection is gone. So I applied for a provisional utility patent on my own. It bought me the time I needed to have real conversations with people around me and understand the value of the idea. And then I worked with a law firm to get the big girl patent filed. And I've since secured 4 patents in my name, making me part of an elite group of people. It's so sad. According to the USPTO and an NPR story, only 4% of patents are held by women or exclusively women teams between the years of 1978 up to 2016. And it hasn't really gotten better. In a lot of senses, it's gotten worse. So yeah, crazy facts, but
Wow.
those are the facts.
That is fascinating. First of all, like, again, I knew nothing of this world. So I'm just sitting here brimming with so much curiosity. And I didn't know the dismal stats regards to how few women have successfully filed for patents, but I'm also in a sad way not super surprised just given the, kind of dismal stats across the board with a lot of business markers when it comes to women in underrepresented communities. So I'm so glad that you are one of many women trailblazing and changing, hopefully, that statistic in the long term. And the explanation, the breakdown that you gave of utility versus design patents is also very, very helpful. So, what I'm understanding is the utility patent, because it hinges on the function of the design and not just the appearance of the design, that's where you get that better protection. And the provisional piece of it, see, I didn't even know that was like a first stage. So, that's good to know for anybody listening to this episode. If you're like, okay, like I really want to protect my idea, like this is your pathway to, like Lisa said, like put your placeholder and then give yourself a little bit of breathing room to figure out next steps. You mentioned you worked with a law firm to actually get the final utility patent filed, but you also worked with some outside engineers, right, on the actual design of the product. Can you talk a little bit about that process? I believe you have some pros and cons to share there.
Yeah, for sure. I had no idea what I was doing. I just saw the need and there was like nothing. I searched all over for what I needed and it didn't exist. I asked my colleagues at the law firm to help me research whether it existed or a patent had been filed, and I just wasn't able to find it. And they confirmed that there were many other things. And
Hmm.
I looked at all of them and I explained to them why they did not fit my specific need as a working and pumping mom. And so they told me straight up I couldn't do it. They said, you have a unique idea. As fathers ourselves, we see the value in it, but you can't do this. Like they just straight up. Some people told me it was a stupid idea and that's what coolers were for. I'm like, no, like you clearly have not lived this. So you don't know. Coolers are
Yeah.
not cutting it. But for these guys, they're just like, you can't do it because I asked why. And they're like, well, you're going to have to actually manufacture it. Like, how? And then you're going to have to try to figure out how to sell and distribute it. Again, how? And I started thinking about the network of people around me. And I had a friend who sold on Amazon and he had a warehouse, but I was missing this piece about how to design it.
Hmm.
I did a lot of research online and I came across many different engineering firms in the Bay Area and around Seattle because I'm West Coast. I thought one of these has to be good. So much mansplaining happened, even from women. So it's
Oh,
no knock on guys, but it was, I think they tried to understand, but like they would come to me like with these like epiphanies, like, oh my gosh, you keep saying you need it to be smaller and more manageable. We have the solution. We did our own research and babies only consume like 3 to 5 ounces at a time. Like we can make it a lot smaller. And I'm like, you guys, I don't care what a baby consumes in
yeah.
a sitting. I care what I have to extract from my body in a day, a
Yep.
very long day or a very long work trip, to not be in horrible pain, discomfort, to
Mhm.
not risk mastitis, like an infection, and to continue producing milk to keep my child alive. Like, that's a very different number. That's like somewhere between 20 and 30 ounces. So
Yeah.
let's stop with whatever tangent you've gone down and go back to what the real need is. So there was a lot of that. So it was actually me knocking on doors in Pioneer Square, talking to design engineers. I didn't even know there was a difference to get to a design for manufacturing engineer who actually had contacts in factories, in manufacturing facilities that knew the materials that would be most helpful. And then we went from there. But even then, it was still fraught, but it was
Yeah.
a process. And I think any entrepreneur that wants it bad enough will get to where they need to go. But if it's worth it, it's probably not going to be easy.
Yeah, 100%. Wow. What a layered process, but I'm so glad you didn't give up and you stood your ground when you had to continue to pull them back into focus with, no, 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 I understand the problem deeply as a mother going through this myself. I know this better than you could ever imagine and really keeping them focused on like what the core product actually needed to be. And what's amazing is once you were actually able to find the right person to help you build and or design, I should say, and manufacture the product, the patent piece, the IP protection piece, I love that you were doing this not only from a side of, hey, I want to protect the invention that I created, but also you kind of went into it with the goal of protecting the end consumer, right? The parents from buying knockoffs that were less safe, not designed correctly because you knew the hurdles you had to go through to even come to the right design and process. So the knockoff piece, this is something that really drew me to your case study because you have actually stood up to knockoffs in a really unique way. Instead of shying away from knockoffs, I feel like a lot of times when people have copycats of their product and they almost try to like make sure like nobody ever hears about it, right? It's like let's make them invisible and ensure that the least amount of people even realize that these dupes exist. But you kind of did the opposite. You really put the dupes front and center through a marketing campaign called the Dupe Drop. Tell us a little bit about what inspired this idea. Was this your idea? Was this someone on your team that was like, we should make a whole campaign out of people who are trying to copy us? How did it come about?
I love that you know about our Dupe Drop because I am really proud of it. It was such a cool opportunity, and I would love to take credit for all of the amazing brilliance around this. We can call it a marketing campaign, but it was really like an outreach, like a community outreach opportunity. It's our take off of what Lululemon did years ago. And so it was a member of our team who was like, Lululemon just blew it up because they had everyone come in with all of their knockoff leggings. They could come into the store and they could exchange it for one of what was really their flagship product at the time. And so I thought, well, let's try this. I mean, very different people could come into a store and it was a different product, but I thought the concept could still work. Within a few days, 1,000 moms had sent in their dupes. So Amazon is now awash with dupes of what I've done. So in 2020, the concept of a breast milk chiller didn't exist. I invented the term and the idea. And now I would say there are hundreds. And some
Wow.
of them have lead in them. Many of them are filled with plastic, chemical freeze packs, all the things I tried to get away from. They managed to take the concept and smash in poor production
Mm.
and just no care for the consumer into the concept. But that dupe drop, moms who had bought products that were twice as expensive as ours and half as expensive as ours were able to send them in. And she needed to fill out a form for us that was like, what are you sending in? And then really it was just her name, address, and what are you sending in?
Mhm.
And then we had an open box that was an open field that they did not have to fill out that said, why are you participating in the dupe drop? And it was not a required field. 98% of moms wrote paragraphs.
Wow.
Just, I mean, like they were dying to say why this wasn't working for them and why they'd gone to all the trouble to send their knockoff into us. And it was, I'm getting goosebumps now talking about it. It was like you couldn't pay for that market research. If you had tried to put together a focus group, there's no way you would have gotten that sort of response and that sort of authenticity
Yeah.
from such a diverse group of people. So we leveraged it as a marketing tool for the features that the chiller already had, but we also got all of this market research and we were all able to catch our breath, like really breathe in like all of this energy and excitement and opportunity rather than feel stifled by all of the marketing from these bigger companies that were kind of coming for us. So it was really cool. And I keep looking for ways to do that again because
To hear the rest of this episode and unlock weekly subscriber-only content and community access, join us as a premium subscriber at cubicletoceo.co/podcast. The link is below in our show notes.